I'm Mike Kaufman, and I will be doing a demonstration on knife skills and the browning of meat. So, ideally you want to have a boning knife and then a non-serrated straight edge blade, but I do not have a boning knife, so I will just be using the one knife with a straight edge. So we have our bone right here, so we're going to start and cut along the bone, and the boning knife will actually make this a lot easier, and you'll be able to get really close to the bone. And you want to have a sharp knife, that way you can slice through it with no problem. I'm having a little bit of difficulty because the meat is a little too defrosted, so that's another key, is that you want to have the meat still a little frozen, that way it also cuts a little easier. When it gets too thawed out, it just becomes real moist and kind of sloppy to work with. And like I said, if it was still frozen, it would cut a lot easier than this. Now with a straight edge, like I said, it cuts a lot cleaner, saves a lot of time. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut it into some chunks. Depending on what you are going to actually make with the meat will also depend on how thick your chunks will be. So, the thinner, you can make like fajitas out of thin stuff, or you could kind of make like a stew or something with the browned meat, with thicker chunks. So, you can also start with different types of meat. This just happens to be beef, and it's a fairly thick piece, so I'm just going to cut it into chunks. But if you have, a piece that's a little easier to work with, you could cut thin slices and make some fajitas. So we'll go ahead and, there we go, we got a thin slice right there. And one important thing is to keep the knife always cutting away from you. When you have the knife comes towards you, a lot easier to cut yourself. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to take these little chunks and we're going to go ahead and throw them into the pan to brown them. I've got some already going for time's sake because it can take a little longer. But these pieces, they're already nice and brown. The browning is due to the Maillard reaction, which usually occurs between 300 and 500 degrees Fahrenheit. This process, it can take, depending on what you have your stove set up, can take a little while, but it all just depends on how thick the meat is. You don't want to overcook it or anything like that, so it's nice to kind of flip it as it browns. But basically what happens is the sugars and the proteins, or the amino groups, as they heat up, they just turn brown. This is due to the presence of the amino groups and the sugars. The amino groups, they add N2 sulfur atoms to the mix of the CH, H2, and the O2, and this allows a variance of molecules and aromas that lead to the caramelization of the sugars. So, when you get to, a nice brown like this, it may look burnt, but it's not. That is the caramelization of the sugars, and the Maillard reaction is also responsible for a lot of the flavors and the nice smells that we get from the meat. So when you do eat these, they should taste pretty good because of the Maillard reaction. So the meat is still pretty tender. It just looks a little burnt, but I assure you it is not. It's got a nice color to it. And these ones, these ones aren't going that quick. But yeah, essentially, you just want to brown these until they get to about that color, and once you achieve that color, they're good to go. The nice good flavor, and right now, you can smell the meat. It smells pretty good, so you don't have to add anything to it. But later you can add spices or whatever you want to it. But when you do that, that can also mess with the process, and so sometimes it's better just to do it after you have it browned.